What's happening in the canine industry? For all the latest news, views, and expert opinions, stay right here for the Canine Paradigm. You'll hear from industry leaders, experts, doyens of the industry, learned colleagues, movers and shakers, and the odd randy guest. Get the latest insights and expert advice from both here and abroad from the people in the know. Now, here are your hosts, Glenn Cook and Pat Stewart. And I'm Lofty Fulton, and I'm out of here.
Hey, Glenn, I reckon it's time for a new ad.
Do you reckon? We just went 14 months with the old one.
We don't even have sponsors anymore, so it probably was a good thing to take it down.
I think they just got so sick of it.
Yeah. So we've decided to no longer take sponsors on the show. The main reason being it comes with a level of admin that we're just not prepared to do.
Yes.
And we want to bring you good dog training information. So there's really only two things that we're interested in telling you about before you come into the show. First one being Canine Paradigm. Glenn, hit us with the details.
Thousands of customers, mainly in Australia and in the USA. We'd love to get in other places around the world, which I think will be on the list. We've got 5-star reviews to the galore. We've had skeptics, people who just don't believe products such as Canine Paradigm can do anything for their dogs. They've tried it. They've come back and they've said it works. It's made a massive change, or it's made a mild change, or it's made a change. That was one of the things Narelle was always working towards. She makes sure she does the science. She likes to peer review everything she's trying to do as much as possible. These things aren't just done by chance. She has done a lot of work, a lot of prep getting it to where it is. Extremely proud of her for all the effort that she's put behind it. Not just because she's my wife, not just because it's our business or her business, but because it works and it's done what it says it's going to do, and it's at such a great level as well. So if you're looking for something to improve the health and well-being of your dogs, you can't go past Canine Paradigm. Check it out online, canineparadigram.com.au.
I love it. I, this year, am changing the way that I teach. I am an educator. It's what I love to do, and I've been trying to find the best way to do that. And in 2026, I'm launching a subscription service. In the past, people have had to buy my courses. You own them outright or you own them for a period. And that has been great, except that it does cut some people out because of the high price point that they can't get in on, where a subscription service allows people to come in. So if you want to check out what I'm doing this year, there's a ton of really high quality information, as well as community forums, live calls, and all that kind of stuff within the Serious Dog Business community that I've launched. There'll be links in the show notes, or you can jump onto the school platform and search Serious Dog Business. You'll find me there.
Let's just remind people that if they do want to support our show, they can head over to Patreon. We always do a wrap up at the end of the show, but Patreon keeps the lights on. If you want to support us, this is the only financial way that the Canine Paradigm gets a cash influx. Our government takes half of it, being in Australia. That's what they like to do. Nonetheless, we have exceedingly appreciated your support. People like Buffhead, the Sugar Mama, massive shout out to them because they were huge supporters of the show. And also, as I've said in my one-man band show that I did just before this, George Kittredge, loving memory of you as well. Thanks for your patronage as well.
All right, let's do it. Welcome back to the Canine Paradigm. I'm your host, Pat Stewart. I'm joined today by my co-host, Glenn Cook, and we've got a guest on. Very exciting, all the way from England, which means that, just FYI for people in the UK, there is no overlap of work hours with Australia. So we're up very early. And Nick Benger, thank you for joining us, mate. You're up very late. Nick Benger, welcome to the show, mate.
I appreciate it. I really appreciate the invite. And this is the first time I've done your podcast, but obviously you did mine a long time ago, Pat. But I know we're going to kind of start talking a bit more about that. But we've known each other for a long time, haven't we?
Yeah. So I'll give the history. Me and you started talking, it had to be at least 9 years ago. I think that my dog was a puppy. I kind of vaguely remember that for some reason, and he's 9, so it's got to be 9 years. And we started talking because someone pointed me to you, but you had made a post somewhere, and it was sort of you as a person who was part of the force-free community at that time, or whatever the fuck it's called, made a post sort of saying, hey, we have to stop saying that e-collars wreck dogs just carte blanche, like, and without any sort of understanding of how it's used or who it's used by, because I'm looking at this guy, Michael Ellis, using all these tools, and he is I don't know if you said it, but the sentiment was he's outperforming all you motherfuckers. And so we need to accept that that is a reality because that's an observable reality that we're seeing. I think in your community, it wasn't exactly well received, but it wasn't terrible, but I appreciate it. And I reached out to you and you and I have been talking on and off, like we touch base every now and again and have been for 9 years or whatever. But you have been through a bit of a journey as a trainer in that time. That's what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, I don't actually remember that post, but it does sound like something I would say. Forever, I feel like sometimes made controversial posts because like we're going to get to this a lot, but you know, it's really important to me to kind of express like what I think is the truth or like always trying to find the best way of doing things like the truth. And I don't know, we're going to get into this, I know, but so I think that's kind of led me to sometimes make posts that are a little bit like controversial. Sometimes if I feel like something is deeply true, I can't not express it, I guess is what I'm getting to. And that's part of the reason we're going to talk about this. I think even as we do this podcast, I'm probably not going to be as eloquent as I would like to be because there's so much stuff here that's quite hard to express.
One question I've got for you off the cuff, Nick, what was it or what captivated you to hold the line so long?
I think the issue, Glenn, for me, we're kind of jumping a little bit ahead, but the issue for me, I guess, I think that you end up in a community of people. It's quite hard, isn't it, to break away from everything you know and all of your kind of friends, connections, everything like that. And also just all of everything that surrounds that is quite all encompassing. Mm-hmm. So it takes quite a long time to kind of peel away from that. It's quite difficult, actually, psychologically, I think. Yeah, it's kind of becomes part of your identity, doesn't it?
Let's take a quick step back because we haven't actually sort of let everyone know that this is Nick's coming out party, right?
I was thinking that you're kind of jumping ahead a little bit. This is already all over the place.
We're just excited.
It's not so much that it was jumping ahead. Anybody that knows you knows that you've been involved in the positive territories, like Pat said, whatever you call them these days. So everyone knows that up until now, and again, as Pat has mentioned, this is your coming out party, but everyone knows that Nick Benger's dog training escapades have been involved in the positive sector. Anyone who knows you or knows about you or has listened to your podcast or anything that you've been involved in knows that's the case. I would gather that there's over a decade's worth, if you and Pat have been friends for 9 years, there's over a decade's worth of experience in that field. And obviously you've towed the company line for a long time. I agree with what you said encompassing that answer in the short way you did, is that it's very difficult to let go of building a network, having a group of friends, because it's the ultimate rub of negative punishment, having all that taken away from you. And that's the threat that's often used with a lot of people in this industry is if you don't toe the company line, if you don't sing our mantra, all this will be taken from you. You can't have access to it anymore. For me, one of the difficulties that I had in my short experience with it, and just knowing what other people have gone through, for people who don't like punishment or cruelty of any form, they can be so cruel unto themselves. The way that they will psychologically beat down on anybody who doesn't sing the same mantra that's been sung and requested, I think for many people that has created a significant problem. And even speaking to Simon Moody, aka the Mutt Nut, best dog trainer in the world, he went through that same process where all of a sudden he was cast out, and it was almost like the symbology of a fallen angel. You know, you're cast out of heaven, you can't come back. You're then ratified as a demon, part of the hellscape, because you're just not part of what is considered the right way according to them. So yeah, it's a bizarre concept. It always has invoked a lot of feelings and big feelings inside of me when I think of it and when I see what it does to people when they're on the other side of it. So I'm interested to hear your origin story. So away you go.
Yeah, let's get back to it. So Nick, give us the rundown, give us the whole arc of how you got into dogs. Treat our audience as new to you. I know that they're very likely very familiar with you, but treat them as new. How did you get into it, and what's it been like for you over the last, maybe 5-6 years, especially as you might have sort of changed how you felt?
I started off, I had my first dog, it was a Labrador, and kind of everything, it was kind of classic dog trainer stuff. Everything went wrong. He was initially very scared of other dogs, eventually became reactive to dogs. Wouldn't come back. I was a doggo. I was actually very young at that point as well. I was probably like 16 years old. I didn't really know anything about dogs. And at the time, this was when Cesar Millan was at his peak. Like it I think it's hard to grasp for the newer generations, but he was like a massive icon at the time. Like he was,
For sure.
and I was a ginormous fan. Like I literally had a Cesar Millan t-shirt. I went to see him live. I was active on his forums. It's like crazy, like super fan.
I honestly, like, I don't train much like Caesar, but holy fuck, we all in the industry owe Caesar a massive debt of gratitude. Like, we are all richer because of Caesar and that show and the heat that he has taken collectively for all of us in the name of saying, like, hey, that dog's life can be improved. Like, that's really what Caesar has done forever, is exposed to the general public. You can hire a person who will come to your house and improve the quality of your dog's life. So I'm a big Caesar fan too. I don't train much like him, but I think that he himself is a very important character to all of us. Anyway, sorry, Matt, cut you off.
Yeah, no, that's good context. So then from there, I was getting into, you have to appreciate I was young at this time, but I was getting into arguments with people online, people that were like positive trainers that were kind of slagging off Caesar. And then at some point, like some random person just said, hey, you should read Don't Shoot the Dog by Karen Pryor. And I figure, well, like, what forgot to lose? I might as well like read what these guys are talking about. So I read Don't Shoot the Dog. And I remember like very quickly thinking like, oh, wow, there is way more to this than I understood, because, Caesar was very heavy on the pack leader ideology. And you never heard Caesar talking about operant conditioning or anything like that. So that kind of blew my mind for a while. And then there was a while even there where I was kind of mixing the two things, doing a lot of trick training and stuff like that. And I think the trick training definitely was a big thing for me because, it's a very, like, it seems like a very visible result. It's like, oh my God, like I'm actually able to train this dog things. And then from there, I just got really hooked on training. Like I was training my dog every single day. People in my local town definitely noticed, like people were asking me for advice and stuff like that. From there, I just kind of gradually slid into doing more and more positive training. I went to university. The university kind of side of things was definitely very like positive, like very positive approach. So yeah, I was like fully immersed in that kind of world from there. So yeah, I was training really only positively for a very long time. It wasn't until the last like 3 or 4 years where I started to kind of understand a little bit more, but even more recently than that, like really, it's been such a lot like big journey, to be honest. In the last 3 or 4 years, even little things, like I think the thing is, it probably has been a bit of a gradual thing because there's kind of little things that have happened along the way. Firstly, I feel like the positive training community has actually changed a lot from when I first got into it. When I first got into it, it was much more aspirational, much more, it felt like people were kind of saying like the community was much more like, hey, this is the best way to train dogs. Like, and we're going to prove it. Like we're going to see positive training really taking over. And it was very kind of exciting to be part of the kind of positive training community. And as it's evolved over the years, it's kind of felt like that's kind of like slid by the wayside, and there's much more of kind of almost an admission like, yeah, it's not as effective as balanced training, but it's the kind of way of doing things, and that just really didn't jive with me. Effectiveness has always been very important to me. So that was one thing that, and also of course, the just pure tribalism, which, I've not liked ever since that was, the beginning of me and you knowing each other, Pat, because I felt like people should be able to talk openly about training, and it shouldn't be such a us versus them situation. I've never liked that.
Well, I think that's one of the really interesting things, mate. I was just reading the comments. So when you and I did a podcast, your show, you have your own group, and I just went back because it was March 2019 we did that. I just had a read through the comments, and it's really interesting to see balance trainers are very often very supportive of a conversation. And so in the comments, there's quite a lot of people who I recognize, like people I'm still in touch with today, that listeners of ours that were like, oh, this is a great conversation, really enjoyed it. And then there's other people who are like, Nick, why did you do this? There's one comment that's there that is like, I can't remember the exact wording of it, but it was like, you put me in danger. Like I had to listen to this and I cried while I was listening to it. And it was, yeah, and I was like, wow. Like, so the difference has always been very stark in that it's like the balance community is usually very happy to engage with force-free people because often they're like, hey, did you know something I don't? If you got a trick I can build into my skill set here because I'm balanced, I'm allowed to use it all. But we don't see the reciprocal because it's often felt like that they have nothing to offer. I mentioned it to someone I was talking with last week. I think one of the reasons, for sure, there's tribal reasons, as in like, don't talk to them, we've got the right information. But I think at the leadership level or the creator level is maybe a better way to explain it, in the force-free community, one of the control mechanisms of not wanting people to look anywhere else is that you find out that they're really fucking good. And it's one of the things I've said. Bart Bellin is probably my most significant mentor in my training journey. And Bart is known as the e-collar guy. You mention his name anywhere, it's all you're going to hear is that it's Nipopo, his e-collars and blah, blah, blah. But like you could tie Bart's hands behind his back. You could cut off his arms and make him play force free with nothing but his feet. And he is going to fucking outperform 99.9% of dog trainers on the planet, let alone the premier users of the force free type thing. So I think that's part of the reason you're not allowed to look elsewhere, is to find out like, well, I can't lie to you about those people. If you go and look for yourself, you might find out the truth that they do use a lot of positive reinforcement and their application and skill with that is far beyond what ours actually is.
I definitely found that, Pat, like as I went through, as I kind of have progressed, it was actually quite painful to me, to be honest. I feel like I've kind of wasted a lot of years, to be honest, like just listening and learning from the wrong people. And one thing I oftentimes, whenever I talk to new trainers now, I always say to them, be careful who you learn from. Like the main thing for me is you want to see that someone is able to actually do what they say they can do. Because yes. I think I spent a lot of time listening to people that were really good at talking about dog training and sounding very convincing. Now I realize there's a lot of people that are really good at talking, but not necessarily very good at training. And sometimes it's even happened to me, like as I think I've become more practically skilled, or I've seen videos of people training dogs that have a really good, like they are kind of a name in the industry. And I'm like, oh, wow, like that's not good dog training, Like I think as you become more skilled, you also become more able to recognize. It's like recognize real kind of thing, like.
Yeah, more discerning for sure. I remember, and maybe this isn't the place to do it, but I do want to put a pin in it. You went to uni and studied behaviorism at uni, right? Like what's your actual
Canine behavior and training?
Yeah. Okay. And so that's one of the things, I don't know if you remember, like I want to be careful, and I want to be careful with I want the audience to understand, I like you, Nick. I think you're great. And we discussed beforehand, I don't want to probe too hard. I don't want to be a dick, but there is a lot of sort of uncomfortable things I do want to discuss with you. The other thing that, I do want to put a pin in as well is one of the reasons why I have liked you all the time is because I believe you. And I don't believe so many other force-free people, right? And I think if you recall, I've sent you plenty of screenshots of names after you've said, oh, well, I train like this person, you should look at that. I'm like, here's a screenshot of them asking me about e-collars, mate. So like, they're not who they say they are. But uni, tell me about that, because that was one of the things that when we used to talk, we'd be back and forth. And I'm a dum-dum. I've never been to school for anything other than like high school. I joined the army. I carried a gun around. I'm not an intelligent guy. I'm not a studier. My son is dyslexic. And when I was reading his report, I was like, oh, fuck, I'm dyslexic. I was like, this is a report about me. So I'm not an intellectual, not at all. And there were times that we would talk, and I remember you having that degree and me being like, fuck, how can we be so opposed here? Because I'm observing what I'm saying to be real, but I can't deny this guy's got the ticks in the box. Like he's got the pieces of paper that says he understands it. And we were so incongruent on many things that we were discussing. What's that like to reflect on now? And how do you feel about your educators?
Yeah, it's difficult. I don't want to shit on them too much because I feel like they're kind of caught up in the same thing that I was caught up in for a very long time. I think, unfortunately, a lot of the education about theory, and I'm not just talking about a university now, I'm just talking about just generally, it comes from a really biased perspective. And there actually hasn't really been a lot of people that have been very kind of forward in exposing that until recently. I feel like Melanie Uda is absolutely killing it with that, and really exposing that, like, when you say that you're science backed is like kind of bullshit, like that actually is, the science does not say what people have been saying that it says for the last however many years. Mm-hmm. And I think that was part of the trap that I was in as well, is like, I've definitely always thought of myself as being a little bit more led by the science. So I felt like that was the right place for me to be. But actually now I realize that the science is kind of not what it says it is. And actually we don't really even have a lot of science. So there's not even really a lot to go on scientifically anyway.
Relevant science. Yeah, for sure. I think that's one of the things that very few people realize is there's very little direct science, like people who are training dogs in a way that is the way that a person would actually train a dog. Like, science is done in silos and you have to separate things to reduce the variables. We get all that, right? Like experiments have to be clean enough to draw a conclusion. But I think sometimes or very often they're so clean that they don't draw any relevant conclusion. Like I don't train a dog in a vacuum. I train a dog in the real world. I don't train a dog in a lab. I train a dog in a training space that the dog has to encounter the real world.
Or it seems like oftentimes like, we've had like a lot of the science seems very to come from a biased place, even in the beginning, when the science is kind of backed by people that already have strong opinions. Sometimes I think the science is just actually kind of uninteresting or kind of irrelevant. It's like they haven't really, I don't know if they're just not motivated to answer the questions that dog trainers are really interested in. Like when we've, a lot of the science regarding, I'm thinking of a lot of the science regarding like non-contingent punishment. It's like, this is not really of much use to anyone because no one is really doing that.
Yeah, except you people doing the studies. Congratulations, you scientifically prove what everybody fucking knows and therefore avoids.
Interesting you guys having this conversation. I'm going to recall some experiences on Clubhouse. Were you ever involved in the Clubhouse trend, Nick? Did that ever cross your path?
No, I didn't. I've always been an Android guy, so I didn't get Clubhouse until it was not cool anymore.
There was a time on Clubhouse where I recall some mixed conversations between the balanced and the plus R community. There was one particular time where I was in a room and it got pretty heated. There were some people that believed they were of substance because they've got some letters after their name and, they've earned their titles, I guess, and I'm not going to dispute or argue that point. The point that I will argue is that once I got to know them a little better and started to cross over into some of their other social media platforms, i.e. Facebook and Insta, and started to see what they were actually offering based on what they were talking about. What they were talking about was they were talking themselves up exponentially. Their capability, on the other hand, was very unimpressive. In fact, it was borderline shit. I never said that. I never started trading insults or anything like that. However, the interesting thing was after a period of time of knowing these people, then they'd start to, the same thing that Pat has found, they would start to come to me in private and start to ask me questions about, and this was periodically after their legions of people were insulting me, saying that I didn't have the qualifications. Who was I to talk out against people of behavioral qualifications after their names through prestigious universities, either in America or the UK or whatever. However, these people would start privately messaging me, asking me questions about things. And I thought, well, isn't that interesting? How would it be if I started to expose these people and started to show their followers? I don't think it would have done any difference because my experience myself when I was involved in the force-free community is they tend to just look at things like a horse with blinkers on. They can't see anything but the road ahead of them. They just refuse to believe that there's anything outside the world because those blinkers guard them so well. I think it was Nietzsche, I don't know exactly how you pronounce his surname, that said they muddy the waters to make the lake feel deep. And that's a lot of times that I feel in that community, they keep you in a state of suspense so you won't ask questions and you kind of feel like you have to revere the people at the top and not get out of line or ask any deep or meaningful questions or refer that you've seen something else, because once that happens, as you originally stated, that's when the negative punishment starts happening. That's when you get dragged into room number one with a couple of people who start strong-arming you about, if you're going to get into this state of thinking, there's a level of consequences that are going to start springing up from this. And I think that's where observably on the outside, you kind of look at it and go, this is really crazy stuff. But when you're involved in it, when you're right in the meat of it, you don't sort of see it like that. You kind of think, well, this is normal life. This is how it is. Like you respect the people above you. They obviously know a lot more than you do. You've got to pay your respects to the people who sort of run the council in this sort of avenue. It really is a bizarre melting pot of opinions. And Well, I'm just speaking on very short-term experience because I jumped out of it pretty quickly because I thought to myself, I just can't do this anymore. I just can't sustain something that my eyes are physically seeing that it's wrong because I've had previous experience in what it was to correct it before.
I think there's an element of audience capture, Glenn, to be honest, as well, like, which is kind of speaks to like Pat's experience as well with positive trainers messaging him too. And that was one thing that's interesting about running my podcast as well, where I've interviewed like almost every big positive trainer you could think of. And what's really interesting is oftentimes when we aren't recording, so many of them will kind of tell me like, oh, well, this other trainer, he uses prongs or he uses e-collars, but he doesn't tell anyone. And it's like, it got to the point where I've like heard so many of these stories about so many people's dog training heroes. And I just think that for a lot of those people, they have built huge audiences of people that actually are quite extreme views. And they're just really scared to actually be honest about that. They've kind of come to the same realization that I've had. Like a lot of people were really terrified to do that because they are worried that they would lose their business.
That's why we're talking to you, mate. Like, that's why I like you, is because those other are fucking cowards. And we must not shy away. Cowardice is the worst trait a human being can fucking have. And these people who have built an audience that they have lied to, and now they are trapped by that audience and cannot admit to their own audience how they actually train dogs. I've been on the ICP podcast and they tried to tell me, oh, but it's not their fault. They're trapped by their audience. They are trapped by their own fucking cowardice is what they are fucking trapped by. And that is what we must never, ever let people forget about these people, because cowards are the most dangerous human beings that there are, because they create fucking dangerous situations for non-fucking cowards. So you can see how angry I fucking get about this is because you have seen it now. There are people who train with e-collar remotes in their fucking hands and then that night go on lives and shit and advocate for banning and making illegal the very tool that they are secretly using during the fucking day. If that doesn't make your blood boil, if that doesn't make you worry, because these are people who are lying. So let's explore that problem. Let's build that out.
Yeah, it's a platform of fraud.
Audience of several, mate, they've got an audience of several thousand people who are buying information from them that they know to be false. That's your first problem, right? You're selling false information. The second problem then is they're advocating to make illegal what they know works. What happens after that? Like, where do you go from there? I better stop talking. I'm getting angry.
No, I actually really agree with you, Pat. But I feel like hopefully, my experience speaks to that even more because I have actually been deeply entrenched in that community for a long, long time. People that were my dog training heroes, people that were a lot of people dog training heroes, I think people will be shocked to find out how many of them are using aversives secretly and not talking about it. And for me, I just couldn't do that. It's a little bit soul destroying to lie about it. So I have been using tools now for around a year and a half. And even like, it's actually been really difficult because people have asked me questions and I don't want to lie about it. So I just end up trying to kind of avoid the conversation because I haven't really been ready to talk about it. And it's kind of been quite difficult to navigate. To be honest, this conversation itself this might be the hardest podcast I've ever done because I just feel a little bit like, I don't know, I just feel vulnerable. I want to express myself, but this is my first time really talking about this. And I feel like a little bit like unpolished and also like a little bit nervous.
Good for you.
A little bit nervous as well because like, this has been my life for like over 10 years. So
vulnerability is always very scary, mate. It's never easy to expose something that you've been guarding and kept a shield around it for a long time. Like, it is an extremely difficult thing to do because it's kind of, you're stripped to the core. It's kind of like those dreams where you're naked in classroom. You feel very vulnerable and very exposed at that point in time. And mate, I know what you're going through. I've had a very short dose of it, but I know what you're going through because when I left and I was indoctrinated for that short period of time, I went through like a massive imposter syndrome and I felt like I was a quitter. And because that's what everybody was saying to me, you're a quitter, you're giving up too easy, you're not giving it time, you've only been here for a short amount of time and you're going to go back to a position of, harming dogs again and using aversives and all that. So mate, I get it. I don't know exactly what you're feeling, but I'm relating to how you're feeling.
That is an interesting point that you talk about, though, Glenn, because I think sometimes, and those are the kind of thoughts that I would have had, Glenn, as well when I first started using tools, because it was like, okay, am I just not a good enough trainer that I can't get the results that I'm trying to in a completely positive way? But the thing is, if I've been training dogs positively for 14, 15 years and I can't get the results that I want to get, how the hell are my clients supposed to get the results?
Exactly.
Right. So like,
tease that out for us, mate. Like, when that day, was it a prong or an electrics? What did you do? Right? Like, tell us through that day. And like, we've all been in that situation. I've been in plenty of situations where I'm ideologically opposed to something and somebody's like, yeah, look, I'll prove to you that it doesn't work. And then it does. And I'm like, oh, fuck, I have to change my mind now. Like, and that's not an easy thing to do, right? That's a very uncomfortable, and especially a lot of it was your identity, like I think that you not like were a zealot for it. We were friends, we talked. You're not like cutting people out of your life and hating family members because they use tools. But, you were on a team and you decided one day, no, I have to put that on. Tell us about that day. Like, do you remember, how did that feel? What was the specifics? Give us the rundown.
Well, that was the kind of thing I was kind of starting to talk about earlier, is like there's been lots of moments where like things have just started to kind of crack a little bit. Like I started kind of, so there's actually been many moments. It's not really been one moment. Like, for example, things like when a lot of positive trainers are like, you can never say no to the dog. I don't understand how we can say no to children, but we can't say no to dogs. Like it didn't resonate with me.
Or to each other.
Things like timeouts. For me, I found timeouts to be a really effective way of dealing with attention-seeking barking for my pet training clients. And some people were really against that. And it's like, well, for attention-seeking behavior, I can't reinforce the dog out of that. Like it's just driven by the reinforcement. And no one could seem to give me alternatives to that. Like there were also things like I started using head collars and I found them to be incredibly effective for clients that were very small and had really big dogs, and people were telling me that was cruel. And it's like, well, this lady is like 5 foot and she has a Great Dane. Like, how is she supposed to walk? Even if you do the lead walking training with a dog, it's like, if that dog just happens to want to sniff something or starts trying to chase a cat or something, like this lady is going to get pulled into the road. So there were lots of moments like that. Another moment for me, Pat, was I remember a trainer, and actually, funnily enough, I think she's kind of a little bit like me in her mindset, but I remember I was training with her and she had an e-collar and she gave it to me and was like, hey, Nick, just use this on yourself, see what you think of it. And I put it on myself, and it took me so long to press the button because I was like, oh my God, this is going to be so bad. This is going to be so bad. And then I pressed the button and I was like, that's it. That was another illusion shattering moment for me, because for years and years and years, like this had been built up. Like it was like, I thought this was going to be some immensely painful thing. And it's like, oh, that was kind of a bit illusion shattering for me. And she'll probably listen to this and then know she's on her own journey. But that actually was a bit of a moment for me. And that was one of the things as well. When I started using e-collars, it's like, I was very surprised at how little pressure is required to make really drastic results with some dogs. I'd always imagined that you would need to be hard and brutal on the dog. And actually, oftentimes you can get incredible results with such small amounts of pressure that you like were just out of reach on a positive training only approach.
I feel like sometimes, very often, what we would call pressure, and we have to admit that we are using a tool to create a pain stimulus to the dog. It's actually more often than not just information. And dogs just take that information and go, yeah, cool. Like, I will move this way because you're telling me to, or I'll stop doing that because you're telling me to. And they're very often like thankful for that extra piece of information. I'm curious if you've observed a general reduction in, let's say, reactivity or just sort of anxiety in dogs just from balance training. Not that you're like fixing it quicker when balance training, but just in the general nature of a dog. Because that's my observation. That certainly is what I think, is that a dog just has a more complete picture of the world and knows what you want, with more detail.
Well, one of the interesting things, Pat, was like, even though it wasn't positive, I almost felt like it was like if you were training with other positive trainers, I almost felt like it was less taboo to give your dog a bollocking than it was to actually use a tool, and it's kind of funny because like for me, the e-collar is so much more of a sophisticated way of using aversives in training. I really like Stuart Hilliard's term of aversive control, but like it's so much more of a sophisticated way. And there were times when I wasn't using tools and I was just reaching the ends of positive training where like I would like have to like tell the dog off, and I'd go home feeling like a piece of shit because I was just like, oh man, I was just so hard on the dog, but the dog just was not getting it, and would just continue just like, no, fuck you, I'm just going to keep going and doing what I want to do. And then you add the e-collar in at like even just like a level that most people would like. For me, oftentimes the dog is responsive on a level that for me, like sometimes I'm not even feeling it, And I think there's something in this, as I've been on this balance training journey as well, everyone always talks about the hierarchy of signals that the dog's responding to. I think this is even in your course, Pat, like the verbal, the hand signals, like visual signals and tactile. And I think there's also something in that with the e-collar training where it's like, it's a sensation that the dog is feeling. And so they're much more responsive to it than the verbal reprimand for a lot of dogs. And it makes sense.
Yeah, we see it like it's actually one of the pitfalls of e-collar training is you got to be careful that the stim doesn't become a command to the dog because it's so clear. And so like the dog's like, oh yeah, got it. Like that tells me the thing. And you got to be careful, like it's something we see in IGP circles. A lot of people will tell their dog to out. It doesn't. They stim it. It does. And I've said to plenty of people, don't say out, just stim it. And the dog happily outs. Like it's just, that's his signal to do it. And like, it's very easy to fall into that trap. And I think that's one of the problems where when the rhetoric is e-collars are bad, you don't get to sort of unpack the many layers and go, yeah, for sure they can be if done this way. like you got to be careful because you can cause some problems like to your training, even at low level stuff that is not going to have anything to do with the stress and anxiety of the dog. You might give the wrong message because it's such a fucking clear signal that the dog is going to pick up on. Did you encounter any pitfalls like that in your journey? And if you're using e-collars now, like where'd you learn from? Who'd you go to?
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know if I should say because I don't know.
Is there a force free person?
No, it's just it's not that. So first of all, the first thing I did actually was I did Michael Ellis's course, which is actually I don't know if it's even his up-to-date opinions on e-collars because it was his Lehrberg course, which is quite old now. That was kind of a big first place. I had a friend that was using e-collars as well, who kind of pointed me in the right direction. But to be honest, my biggest mentor in dog training generally for the last like 3 years has been Alex Latto, he has a book called Braveheart. And just to give him his kudos, he's an unbelievably underrated dog trainer. Like he's incredibly skilled. I don't think people realize how good he is. He's taught me so much and guided me through so much stuff in dog training in the last few years. He's an IGP helper primarily, but he also does a lot of pet dog training. He does a lot of residential training. He's very into play training. He actually has a way of dealing with teaching dogs through reactivity training, which is completely unique to him. No one else teaches it. And it's really freaking cool, really cool. And it's based a lot on protection training, but almost the opposite of that for pet dogs. It's really, really cool. So yeah, just kudos to him. He's helped me so much.
I just want to swing back on what you were talking about before, Nick, with your own aversions to using an e-collar or even that feeling that you had of sitting there and delaying pressing the button. There's many reasons that those sort of things happen in the public. One I will refer to was a clip that I watched of Victoria Stilwell talking about it with people. And I mean, she obviously set the stimulation level quite high. And she was telling this one gentleman, I'm going to give you an experience with this, but you better sit down because you might fall over when you actually feel how horrible this sensation is. And I'm just thinking, this is the sort of the psyop that they use against people like yourself and many other good people out there who genuinely feel like, why the hell would I want to do this if I have to be seated in the event that it could be very similar to a taser feeling? And there was another instance which I physically saw in a room when I went to a seminar. A guy came out here from Belgium and was conducting a seminar. A large part of it was Napopo style training, and he was introducing an electric collar. Long story short, he was saying to people, would you like to feel what the collar feels like before we go on? And there was a very hesitant lady in the front row, and he said to her, ma'am, would you like to feel what this feels like? And she goes, oh, not really. Oh, well, okay. And she's sitting there and she's sweating. She's literally starting to drench herself in sweat. And he said, it's okay. It's okay. It's a very mild level. Like, it's a very low level. He goes, watch, I'll do it to myself. And he sits there and he stims himself. He goes, I can barely feel it. Like, it feels like little taps of fingers on my wrist. And she goes, oh, okay, I'll do it. So she puts it on her hand. He's fiddling around up the front and he goes, okay, all right, we're just going to do very low level. And he showed her, he goes, this is level 1. He does it and she goes, oh, no, I can't feel anything. And he goes, all right, so we'll put it up to level 6. And he goes, you probably won't be able to feel anything. And she goes, oh, I'm not sure. And he goes, all right, at this level is about level 10, level 11 that most people say they can start to feel it. And he did it and she goes, oh. And he goes, ma'am, are you okay? And she goes, oh, no, here, have it back, oh. And she's carrying on like a pork chop. He's going, would you like some water, ma'am? She goes, oh, I just need to sit for a minute. Oh, and she's gasping and carrying on. There's an enormous performance going on. I'm thinking, wow, that he must have accidentally hit like a high level or ascending stim or something like that. Something must have happened. 5 minutes goes by. Everyone's attending to her. Everyone's making sure she's okay. And he said, ma'am, I had no batteries in it. I took the batteries out before I gave it to you.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And that's why he did it. He said, I didn't do this to set you up. This is a common problem that we're seeing around the world is the power of suggestion is making people feel sick to their stomach or even feel the physical ailments of what the collar is because they've manifested it inside their head through other people's propaganda. I thought to myself, wow, I was actually in the room present to that. I saw that happen. And she said, oh, no, you must have had the batteries in accidentally. He said, no, they're out. Look, I haven't got any batteries in there. He goes, there's no way this can send and receive. And, I'm a former electrician, so I know something about voltages and currents. And also, I've been around remote trainers since the 1990s. So, yeah, I can verify that I was witness to that. But the power of suggestion and the physical feelings that she actually had, I mean, her heart was racing. There was somebody in there who was a registered nurse who was saying, oh, yeah, your heart is elevated. Mate, it was all placebo. It was all just manifested in the mind. So now there are millions of people out there, thanks to, that video that Victoria Stilwell and other people have put out there, who are feeling that physical sickness because they believe these people and they trust these people. They've sold them a con that remote trainers, it's something vindictive and horrible, and the aversive feelings that a dog will encounter are so unbearable that why would you want to do this to a creature that you love? Yet now after you felt it, and you felt that relief, you go, oh my God, is that it? Is that really it? And I mean, we're under no illusion or premise that we're not going to say to people, yeah, you can fucking hurt a dog with a prong collar or a remote trainer or a martingale or whatever tool. You can do that. If that evil exists within you, if you're that type of person, if you're a diabolical type of person and you want to do these to dogs or you have sought out poor mentorship or anything, yeah, of course, that can happen. And that will happen anyway. People will just do those sort of things nonetheless. Even if the tools are not there, as you said, people, using your phrase, people will just give their dog a good bollocking with their foot or with a rolled up newspaper or whatever it might be. Their frustrations will still be taken out on the dog. I think that's where we've got to conclude this illusion and this fabricated fraudster lie is that these tools, it's like firearms. I know I've been on a bit of a bender of those sort of things, but it's like firearms. The only person who points a firearm and pulls the trigger at a susceptible target is a human being. Firearms don't do them themselves. If you do safe practices with them and you do safe practices with remote trainers and prong collars and martingales and correction chains and so forth, the net positive to them are exceedingly proactive. Exceedingly. Again, using my own eyes and being physically present when I've watched mentors, students, and multiple people around the world getting the net positives with tools. That's why I can't deny it. And that's why I refuse to budge on the situation is because I can physically see the net positives. I can actually see the dog coming around to it and going, oh yeah, this makes sense. Thanks. Appreciate it.
That's been my experience, Glenn, as well. When I've actually introduced clients to the e-collar now is I think almost everyone has been like, oh, wow, that's it. I think people were expecting this incredible pain and it wasn't that at all. But I started off using the e-collar with one of my own dogs. And then when I realized how effective it was for that, it's really difficult then when you have clients coming to you. Like I had one client, he has a pointer. He went through all of the kind of force-free way of teaching recall courses that you can think of, really highly respected stuff. And he still couldn't get his dog off lead. And he was complaining to me that the instructors of the courses were not responding to his messages anymore. So yeah, so at that point, having e-collar trained my own dog, how can I not say that to him? He's got to keep his dog on a long line, and he's, upset about that. And now he sends me videos of his dog off lead, running around on beaches, in woods, having an awesome time. I've had other dog, for me as well, I had one lady, she has a Doberman. I've been really difficult reactivity case. I've been working with her for like over a year, trying to do things like in a more force-free way, to the point where it's like almost unethical. It's like, how can I keep working with you and not getting a result?
Yeah.
We introduced the e-collar, and like, this is an older lady as well, struggles to hold the dog because it's a big dog. It's completely changed everything for her. It's made her able to walk her dog. She was at the point where she was kind of like just giving up, at the point of like maybe rehoming the dog, or she just kind of resigned to just paying for secure fields for the rest of the dog's life. So there's dogs I know that I would not have been able to get a result with in a force-free way that are now able to have so much more freedom, which is so much better for the dog's welfare. And it's also so much better for the people that were, that's the thing. It's really, once you have that knowledge, like, because you've experienced it, I don't know how you can choose to deny that to some people that are in front of you. Sometimes people are crying, and if you deep down and like, I have a way of helping you, how can I not offer that to someone? I just can't do that.
So how does that make you feel now, Nick, knowing this, seeing it with your own eyes and bearing witness to it yourself? How does it make you feel?
Like I said in the beginning, I feel like I wasted a lot of time listening to the wrong people. That's the kind of saddest thing for me personally, is I just feel like I wasted a lot of time.
Do you feel relieved?
Do
you feel relieved though? Or do you just feel disappointed?
I feel relieved I finally figured it out.
Yeah, good. Yeah, good. That's good.
You know what I mean? Like, God, imagine if I would never have come to that realization. And it's not even just the kind of tool stuff as well. It's like through getting into dog sports, the level of information I've got to, just even on a positive level, has like far surpassed anything that I was exposed to as a pet dog trainer. And even like little things, there's like gray areas. It's like people don't know if it's force-free or not, so they don't want to talk about it. Like things like hand feeding, things like lead pressure. These are things that like the positive side of things, like they're not really comfortable talking about. As a pet dog trainer in the positive realm, you just never like learn that stuff. Even play, because the bite work community has really like been at the forefront of using play in training. So the level of like knowledge and the disparity between what's going on in the bite work community with regards to play and what's going on in the pet dog training community is just not recognizable.
Yeah.
So that just exposure to just good training, I think has made a ginormous difference to me, whatever like label you want to put on that.
I think that has a lot to do with, measurable standards. For so long, I've been saying that kind of rightly to a degree, pet dog training is unmeasurable in its success, right? Like, because our success, the decision of whether we're successful or not comes from the client. And we've all been to like weird client interactions, right? Like I've got so many in my head where you get called there for a specific reason. And like there's one that pops into my head all the time of dog pulls on the leash. We just want him not to be able to pull on the leash. I'm like, cool, come around. He shits in the house. He's a fucking disaster. Like he's objectively destroying their life. They don't care. They want him to not pull on the leash. And I'm like, okay, we can do the not pulling on the leash. Like for sure, we can do that real quick. But like, would you like me to talk about how to not have him shit in the hallway? Because I can see a dog shit in your hallway right now. Like that's a problem. And it's not a problem for them, right? They're grubs, whatever, right? But like, so pet dog training is very difficult to determine from an outside set of eyes were you successful. Really, the client, it's their decision of whether you're successful. But sport dog training is, well, no, you didn't get the points. Like you didn't do it. And you could have as many excuses as you fucking like. We're all going to take our tools off. Our dogs are going to enter the field nude or wearing a fur saver or whatever the fuck they're going to wear. And we're going to find out together how our training holds up. And that to me is where all the nonsense falls apart, right? Like all the, but magic this and feelings this is like, no, but like we're watching your dog not do the things. Like this is the test. You've failed the test. It's why I was such a advocate supporter of GRC, because I thought that sort of brought that idea into the pet realm. And I've said it many times. I brag about it every time I can. I facilitated the first GRC trial in Australia. I brought Jay out to judge it. There were a lot of people really excited about it because this is the pet dog game. Like all these pet dog trainers can play. 3 people passed. Me, Jazz, and a other guy from my club, like who all sport dog trainers. So, and not with our sport dogs. Like I had to borrow a collar for my Springer Spaniel because I didn't even own a fucking collar that fit her. Dom, who got the other pass from my club, he brought out some dog I'd never even fucking seen. I didn't even know he had this random Mastiff dog that, like, I didn't even know he owned that dog, and he managed to pass a GRC trial. But he also has Malinois that is, like, exceptional, you know? So, like, I think that to me is the big measure, and that's where we see a lot of the force-free nonsense falling apart. But what kind of irks me is then you get people who go into force-free realms, who work in the, you know, and live and sort of are a part of the force-free community, get into the sports space, do the opposite of what you've done. So they get into the sports space and they go, okay, well, these are my secret tool friends who I train in a particular way with, and I'm going to use my trial footage as a demo of how good I am, right? But I'm never going to let you see how I actually train these exercises, and I'm going to let you assume, or I'm going to flat out lie to you and say that I did it in this force-free manner so that you buy my bullshit on that regard. That's why I'm so happy to have you on, because you've zigged where so many others have zagged in that same situation. How do you feel though? Like, do you hate them as much as me now? Like, are you fucking repulsed by that? Like, or are you still part of like, oh, but I know them and they're working through their things?
Well, let me just talk a little bit to the point you were making before, because that really was my lived experience. Like, I felt like sometimes if I'm teaching a puppy, I've said this the other day, like I think if I'm teaching a puppy class, I feel like a dog training god. You know, I just feel like everything is so easy and the clients are looking at you like, oh my God, this guy is incredible. And then you go to, for me, it's IGP training on a Thursday, and I just feel like shit, you know? I just feel like the worst person in the room. I kind of feel like, you know, those people you see that like, they've done like really bullshit martial art for like their whole life, and then they go to MMA training.
Oh my God, that's the best. That is such a good equivalence. Oh my God.
I did that, dude. I did martial arts via VHS, and I thought, oh, fuck, I'm killing it. And I went to a martial arts school and got my ass kicked.
I feel like that was basically my experience. I felt like I kind of went to, jiu-jitsu or MMA training and kind of got the shit kicked out of me. And then then it's like, well, what do you do from there? You know, like that's a little bit of an awkward moment, you know, like where do you go? Do you just kind of pretend that that never happened? or do you just realize and try to move forwards and get better?
If you ever want to see something that's going to change your life, Pat got me onto it. On Instagram, there's a guy who exposes fake martial arts schools called McDojo Life. Mate, it is incredible. There's one of a guy who's making this invisible force field, like he's kneeling in front of like an MMA fighter, and he's sitting there and he's preparing it, and he's going, all right, it's done. And the guy just goes whack and punches him in his face. He goes, oh, hang on, not ready. While he's sitting there like bleeding profusely out of his nose. So he goes again, and he's sitting there and he makes this invisible force field, and the guy just lays 2 other punches into him and decks him. Again, these people sincerely believe that they have these powers and these capabilities, and yet when it's exposed, when it's actually put on the line and people are testing it and the theory is now put into a pragmatic manner, that's where it crumbles before your eyes and you go, oh, shit, this is a very difficult thing. But McDojo Life, if you haven't seen it, put it in part of your apps if you ever want to laugh at some of these people, and even watching their students. Some of these teachers will grab their students with one finger and they'll flick them across the room, but you'll see these people willingly throwing themselves down and feeling like this incredible pressure upon themselves because they really believe it and they don't want to disappoint their master. Yeah. Like they've given themselves a master and now they're under their illusion.
You guys actually did a really just beautiful episode at one point about the Emperor's New Clothes. And that was one of I think that might be my favorite episode you ever did. And that's kind of how I feel completely. And I think that's why you were talking about the dreams, Glenn. And I think that's why kind of I felt a lot nervous about this as well, because it does just feel there is just a level of a kind of exposure like, oh man, like, you just find I'm actually kind of embarrassed, to be honest, about a lot of the things that I used to think and post. And I did contemplate deleting a lot of my old stuff. But at the moment, I kind of feel like it's just part of my journey. So I've just left everything up.
That's a good way to look at
yeah.
it, mate. Yeah, it's part of your journey. Yeah. You're allowed a pilgrimage of enlightenment. And many people do struggle on the road to enlightenment. Like, it's a very difficult process. Much like dog training, it's full of, what's that? Oh, let me look it up. There's a good saying. Here it is. It's by Voltaire. It says, if you close your eyes to facts, you will learn through accidents. I think that's plagued many of us when we've been ignorant before, is that you'll start learning by the wrong ways of doing things, and it will start plaguing you. And you'll start realizing something needs to shift here. Something needs to change, because I just can't do what other people can do. The only reason that's happening is because I've closed myself off to other forms of communication. And that's what, Pat was saying before. I don't look at it so much as pain. I look at it through communication and also inlaying control. That's the way that I look at it when I'm teaching human students and dog students. Is all I'm doing is giving you the ability to control this. It's now up to you. You have choices. You do actually have choices. People say, oh, they don't have choices. You're fabricating this. But that's also a lie. They do have choices. We've all got choices. There's lots of choices you can make in these sort of situations. And once any student feels that capability of being able to control something, I think that's where you actually start feeling that you're on the right path to finding out what the meaning of life really and truly is. Like, you feel like, I can control outcomes now. This is a much better way to live. There's so much more clarity. We've done episodes on clarity. Pat's talked about that before, and I'm a big advocate for that as well. Building control, building clarity, building and having compassion while you're there as well. We might be talking a bit of smack talk about people in the force-free communities, but we've admitted before many times on the show that some of the wild things that we've seen, we've also seen good things as well. We've seen things that we've been able to take away and said, yeah, that's a nicer way of doing things, or that might be a more eloquent way of explaining a portion of what I'm trying to do here. And this might be, like a perfect time to insert this into the dog's training futures. And mate, credit where credit's due. But there's no all or nothing in this. There's times where you've just got to sit back and realize, okay, what's the best path forward now? Using something aversive here or using something more positive? I think what we need to do in those sort of situations is just use a little bit more intelligence.
I think the world of dog training probably had a bit of a correction towards reward-based stuff, because I imagine at the time everything was probably much more punishment heavy. And that was good in so many ways, but now it seems like it's kind of gone too far the other way, and when people think that you can't have any level of aversive control. But Pat was asking me a minute ago about, am I angry at the other people? I understand your anger completely, Pat, because I do feel that sometimes as well. Where I feel that most is with people that are exactly what you said. I know that they're using tools because mutual friends, connections, etc. And then I see them actually advocating for bans. I think that does actually really make me angry. But I think there's also another category in there of people that are in the same position that I was in, where they kind of know that it's not true, but they feel really, they don't feel ready to talk about it. But I think they have to. I don't know. For me, I just couldn't do that forever. It just would really not sit well with me. And I've felt like for the last 2 years, there have been, with those cases I've spoken about where there's been dogs where I felt like I could help. I felt like I had to kind of sneak around and suggest things and kind of be very hush-hush about it. And I just hated that. I just really, really hated that. So I would rather just be open about it.
Let's follow that up a little bit, because dog training is ostensibly, it's your life. You started doing this as a teenager. It's as far as I know, it's your job. It's everything. Your hobby, your job. It's a big part of your life. It must have been so fucking cool to open up a whole new side of information that you can learn. Like it's like a rebirth. That's why I make the joke that it's your coming out party. But like, you then, once you make that decision, you're like, oh, holy fuck, now there's so many people I can learn cool shit from. You get to almost start over.
That's such a beautiful positive spin on it, Pat. And actually that has been really nice. Obviously, I'm part of your community now. Yeah, hugely. It's actually what's really cool, Pat, which is there are dogs that I just haven't been able to get results with over the last, sometimes there are dogs I think now that I haven't been able to get results with over the years, where I'm almost tempted to reach back out to them because I know now I can.
I do it. I reach out to old clients. When I figure out an old problem, I reach out to old clients. I'm like, I'm coming over. I'm fixing that. Oh, the dog's dead. He's been dead for 2 years. I'm like, fuck.
Serious question on that. How do you explain that when you are seen as the pinnacle of information and yet you can't get a result? How do you communicate that with the client? Because I'm very interested in how people deal with topics like that.
You mean beforehand when I couldn't get the result?
Yeah.
I mean, for a long time, Glenn, I think there's a lot of rationalizing it in your own head. And I think a lot of trainers are doing this as well. Like if you're not getting a result with a client, sometimes you try to think, well, they're not doing it right. Or they, they're not following the plan, or, it's very easy to shift the blame. Sometimes I've I've always been aware of like, sometimes there are some things I just haven't really had an interest in. Like for example, separation anxiety, not really, it's just never really been my jam. So I would tend to refer it to other people. Yeah, it's just sometimes there have been dogs where I haven't been able to get a result. I think that's probably quite normal for most people. But as Pat was saying, like with starting to add some aversive control, it makes you realize that you're able to get a result with so many more dogs than you were able to previously. And it's better for the dogs and the people. So that's my belief.
So going back to that again, rationalizing it in your head is one thing, but what would you say to the client? Like, let's say, for example, you have a fictitious client that comes up to you, has a dog with some mid to significant level problems, and you suddenly find that you're way out of your league with this dog. How do you rationalize that with the client? What's the conversation that you would have had with the client?
I don't think that happened very often though, Glenn. I think most of the time I would just keep trying to work through the plan with them. If they stopped seeing me, then maybe I would think, like clients, oftentimes they just stop seeing you, right? And you don't really know what happened. There have definitely been dogs where I think that I would have, maybe this is kind of what you're trying to get at, Glenn. There have definitely been dogs over the years where I've explained to the person, hey, there's a ceiling on how far we can go with the dog that you have. And yeah, people have been quite understanding of that.
And let's be clear, just so we're not sounding like we're just being attack dogs on this sort of situation, is that can happen whether you're using aversives or not. That can happen in both camps. There are times where you can look at, there's dogs that have been my nemesis before when I have been using tools, and I've just said to the client, look, I'm stumped on this dog at the moment. There are a few anomalies that are happening here that are beyond what I'm being able to be helpful with. And they are times where I have suggested another trainer. So the combination of outcomes that I've given them is see another trainer, which I've given them suggestions to do so, consider medications, or if the problem is persisting, then maybe euthanasia.
One situation I started to get into over the last few years, Glenn, is like, this didn't happen very often, but there's one dog that really comes to mind that I really, really struggled with. Very reactive dog that just kind of enjoyed fighting with other dogs, like wasn't afraid or anything like that, just really enjoyed conflict. And I was training in a more force-free way at the time. That's a really hard case for a force-free trainer, right? Because it's a very tough one.
Well, that's the case we always use as the example of can't be fixed with force-free.
Yep.
That's exactly the case.
Yeah, and I was working with them for a long time. I actually got to the point, and I do this a lot. I've always done this. If I haven't been able to get a result in a reasonable time frame, I'll oftentimes just keep working with the people for free for as long as they are willing to. And I did that. I gave them so many free sessions, but I still wasn't really getting a result with a dog. But the awkward position I got myself in at that time with where I was at is I didn't feel like there was anyone I could refer them to that would actually be able to help them, because I know what other people are going to do. And I've already tried all that stuff, so I didn't feel like, I felt like very kind of helpless with them. That's actually one of the people one of the cases that I would be tempted to reach out to. And I have reached out to them, and I'm going to be helping them again for free in April, which was convenient for them.
I think we all hit those points, like regardless of how you train, everybody has stood in someone's kitchen. And as you're explaining the plan, you just see their eyes roll over and they're not going to fucking do any of it. And you're trying to modify it on the fly as it's coming out of your mouth to make it easier and easier. And you're still just getting that like absent nod, just like where they're projecting, get the fuck out of my house. I'm not doing any of this shit. Like, and then you follow up with them and they tell you it's great. And they haven't done any of it. Like we've all had those clients that no matter where you land, we've all failed a dog because our plan wasn't effectively communicated to the handler. Like we've all had that. And maybe it would have worked perfectly no matter what it was for us if we'd actually put it through. Like everybody on every side of it. And if you're listening and you're a trainer and you're like, that never happened to me, it's gonna. Or you aren't perceptive enough to notice that it has already. Yeah.
Yeah, the thing is as well, it's not like I haven't helped anyone for the last 10 years. You know, like there have been plenty of people that have been super happy with the service. It's just...
You're not helping our narrative, Nick. We're fucking shitting on Force 3 here, mate.
Like there are plenty of people that have been like, got results and been super happy, but there are just many dogs that I just haven't been able to help.
On the e-collar thing, just to circle back a little bit, I was thinking while you guys were talking about, the people overreacting to how badly it hurts. That to me has always kind of pissed me off a little bit. And there's a guy in your neck of the woods who somehow, for some reason, comes up in my feed, constantly carrying, he's got nothing interesting to say. He's only got complaints to make. And one of them recently was if they'd just put them on themselves, they'd realize how horrible it is. And like, I remember thinking, like, I don't know that I've ever let anybody use an e-collar on a dog without them first using it on themselves. Like I've never once done that because I'm always like, look, you got to check that it works. You got to I'll show you how this thing works. You got to understand the system and how it works. Like there's a lot of e-collar work before it goes on the dog. And for me, the way that I always intro the e-collar is I'm wearing one that the dog is wearing as well. So like I use Martin Systems gear. It takes seconds to pair collars to things and I can pair an infinite number of collars to the same remote. I always, when I'm doing intro lessons of that kind, and probably for if it's someone I'm working with 2 or 3 times a week, for probably a month, I'm going to wear a receiver that is on the exact same frequency and receiving the exact same stim that they're giving to their dog so that I can gauge all their timing and their levels. Cause I train people to use, typically people who are training under me are going to use 2 buttons. They're going to have a lower stim and a higher stim that rises, right? So they can get to an aversive level really quickly. And I need to know what the fuck is going on here? Because I'm teaching you and I'm observing, I need to know what you did and I need to observe it on the dog. And that's something I picked up from being in the army. That's how the army trains all the time. Very often the first person you come against is the instructor that taught you. And so to me, it just made total sense that I'm like, okay, well, if I'm teaching this, I need to be able to feel what's going on with the dog. I'm not relying on the person I'm training to be truthful with me about what they're doing or even fully aware of what they're doing, never mind truthful, right? And so that's one of the narratives that, if people really understood it, you just wouldn't say dumb things like that. Oh, use it on yourself. Every fucking day I use it on myself, you dummy. No shit. And I'm quite all right.
Yeah, but see, that's that fear instilling process where, again, referring back to Victoria Stilwell, it's like preparing people for how terrible this could possibly be. And it's already sending red flags and alarm bells off in their heads.
The other narrative, which I definitely have been guilty of repeating before I knew better, is, people will make out that it's the hardest thing to do. You need some extreme level of dog training knowledge to be able to use an e-collar effectively without breaking the dog. And of course, everyone should do their research. But I really think if you have the timing to do clicker training well, you can learn how to use an e-collar quite quickly. So
that's a good point. I think that is definitely one of the narratives that has been overplayed is that there's certain people in the anti-e-collar space who absolve themselves from using an e-collar when I know that they do, right? And these are people, Glenn, who have, when we stop recording, confide in us that they do.
Yep.
But they'll publicly say the reason they can't is because of the necessity of incredible timing in order for the dog to understand it and blah, blah, blah. And I just don't have that timing. Well, that's bullshit too. The dog figures it out. Use a marker, load a marker to understand. In the same way that I can have my dog very far from me, can do things and I can go, hey, I like that. Come over here and I'll give you reinforcement for it. I can do the exact same shit and go, hey, I don't like that. I'm going to come to you and I'm going to apply an aversive for it. And fucking, hey, presto, they can figure that out as well. It is a weird line that has been very much pushed and it's just false. It doesn't make any sense.
One of the things I was thinking about as I was doing this podcast is as I've kind of had to have this awkward conversation with people recently, is what can I say that would have convinced me previously? And the trouble is, I just don't think there is actually anything I can say that is going to make anyone change their opinion. because there wasn't really anything for me. It was those little things that kind of broke the illusion over time. So it's a really difficult position to be in, because I know if I was listening to this podcast, it wouldn't have changed my perspective at the time. In fact, I know that particularly, Pat, because I listened to the podcast that we did together. I only managed about 10 minutes because it was just so cringe inducing listening to myself arguing with you and not really taking in anything that you were saying. And, you were kind of giving me all this information back then, but I just wasn't ready to hear it. Like I kind of needed to go on my own journey with it. I only wish it would have been a lot quicker. So I'm not really sure what I can do to make that illusion break for anyone else. I guess the only thing I can just suggest people do is be a bit more open-minded and learn about it open-mindedly. And also, like, ideally actually get some like practical exposure to the e-collar, even if that's just on yourself. And we're speaking a lot about e-collars, but obviously I'm just talking about aversive control in general, really. I think that's all anyone can do. And then you can make your own mind up about it.
Matt, I think you doing this puts into the field the idea that you are allowed to change your mind. That's worth this conversation just in and of itself, just having people know that you're allowed. I'm bummed that it didn't happen. COVID put an end to it, but I was meant to do a thing in the States. It was going to be for mostly force-free people. I was really happy to do it because it was a curiosity. It was like, okay, show us. And we were facilitating other dogs because they weren't going to let me use their dogs. It was going to be like people I use dogs to come and do it, and they wanted to see it. And I think that's the steps, right? In like, actually have a look, but don't look at the bad cases. Like, don't look at, there's plenty of people using aversive control that I'm like, no, that's abuse. That's not, or that's really bad. Like, there's plenty of stuff that I look at. I'm like, that's shit training. It's not bad enough for me to get upset about. Like, I'm not going to complain about it, but fuck, you're a dog shit trainer. And they're the things that are often being put as the example of, look, this is how these aversive control is used. Whereas I think if people can bring themselves to really open-mindedly sort of have a look and go, how does this go? And I think your life just gets so much better when you do that, like it's such a curiosity is such a better place to live from. And I get into, like I said, I've said it heaps of times. I go, there's people who I look at and I see them online and they say things and I'm like, interesting. Let's see you train some dogs. And if that means I have to get into the paywall, that's fine. I'm happily do that, right? Like I'll go into your program, I'll have a look and see how you go. And then we can have a dialogue. And now I can form like, oh, this is how I think about this person because I can see how they actually handle the dog versus we're just sort of making things up prior to that, pulling things out of the air and making a lot of assumptions that are very seldom fair.
Yeah, it's interesting though, isn't it? Because I feel like a lot of people aren't actually even able to assess what is good training versus what is bad training. Like you spoke a little bit about this with the Mia Skogster post. Do you remember that? Like the comment on the Mia Skogster post?
It's my favorite. I'm so scared of something like that happening to me. That's why. That truly is my biggest nightmare.
Refresh my memory because I don't remember this conversation.
Tell us, Nick. Did you actually see the post?
I saw the post and then I heard you guys talk about it, but I'd seen it previously. And I always feel bad because I bring this up because I feel like I'm really throwing Denise Fenzi under the bus, but I don't mean it like that. They don't mean it as any hatred towards Denise Fenzi. But it was on a Mia Skogster post. Someone had put, "Hey, you need to learn about dog training. You don't know what you're doing. You should go and learn from Denise Fenzi." And it's like, for people they don't realize like. Mia
talking to a literal world champion.
two-time world champion. You're talking to a two-time world champion, and Denise is a lovely lady, and I'm sure she's a very competent dog trainer, but there are levels to the game, It's like, it's just, it's just not a fair comparison. And people don't realize that. And I see that
is my deepest nightmare.
I see that though in the people that people are idolizing as well, people that are very good speakers that sound very convincing, but we've never seen any kind of dog training from them. So since my views have started to change, now when I'm like looking to people to learn from, I value more than anything else. I want to see the dogs that they've trained and that they're able to do what they say they can do. That's like incredibly important to me.
It's like a biblical statement, mate, from Jesus talking to God that says, "Forgive them, Father, for they do not know." or they know not.
They know not. Isn't that wild that now the idea of like, no, but I want proof. You've had to kick that up a notch because there's so many people full of shit that just talking about it and being a good speaker conveys that you're better than that you are. And like, that's the case. Like I'm a better talker than I am dog trainer. I'm pretty handy on the tools, but I'm still better at this part of it than I am at the other. But I think that is a skill set in our world as well. Like you've got to be able to teach what you can do. But I think that Mia Skogster thing is my worst nightmare. Like imagine being that person who made that comment and thinking that you are on the right team and thinking like we are charging forward and we're the heroes of this and we know this shit so fucking well that you call out a lady who is the best in the world at doing it and tell her that your mentor is who she should look at. And without, so, you know, like, it's not like Mia doesn't post a fuck ton of training. Mia Skogster is in every way the real deal, right? In every measure, the real deal. And for people to not be able to see that and be blinded to that so much that they recommend she go and learn from Denise Fenzi. And again, like I agree, I'm not trying to shit on Denise Fenzi, but she ain't Mia Skogster. The idea that Mia should just stop. You got no idea what you're doing.
Yeah, it's hilarious. That was one of the cultural changes I didn't really like as well. I felt like as the kind of movement moved on, you were almost like seen as if you were being a bit of an asshole if you asked for any kind of video evidence or like proof of competency that wasn't just like a qualification. You know, like if you ask to see video, it's like it's almost like a taboo thing to do.
How do you reckon they got away with that? How did that come in?
I don't know. This is the thing though. When I started and now when I'm kind of leaving, I feel like it's two different communities. You know, I feel like when I started, it was like people that really believed that this was actually the best, most effective way to train dogs. And also it was a lot less like judgmental, I feel like. Whereas now it feels a lot more like policing other people and just very like zealous and trying to one up everyone. I think a lot of that, to be honest, is actually an issue beyond dog training. I think it's actually to do with social media. Yes. Like if a lot of people say like, oh, dog training is such a depressing, like the community sucks. It's such a depressing place to be. And what I think they're actually experiencing is Facebook sucks and it's a really depressing place to be. And if you think that's the dog training community, then that's what you think. But actually, as me and you have found out, Pat, because we're both schoolers now, you know, like there are places, or even if you just go to hang out with people in real life, it's like so much nicer. Yeah. You know, it's a different thing.
That's a good point.
In real life dog training, the dog's there. We can see whether you can do it. Like the dog is here. The dog doesn't lie.
See, I was fortunate in my youth of training is that we didn't have social media. We just didn't have any of these platforms. Like if you were talking smack about somebody and you actually drove around to their school and watched them training, you'd find out real quick if they were the shit or not. And there were some people that, you know, like I remember hearing rumors about them and forming an opinion of them thinking, oh, they sound shit. And I'd go around to their dog training school and go, oh, they're actually not. They're really good. They're doing things that I haven't seen before. And maybe I should shut my big mouth and actually learn from them and on what they're doing and ask questions and be a recipient of their education. And that only made me a better trainer because I kind of thought, how lucky am I that I can actually go around and see these people doing these other things? And why did this other person come to our training premises and talk these people down? And that was often a question I had to other people who said, why did you say that about these people? Because they're actually, not only are they good at what they're doing, but they're also become allies and friends. I just don't understand where things went so wrong that this rumor was perpetrated about them being shit people and bad dog trainers. It's kind of wild that still happens.
I think hopefully this isn't the majority, but there are people even more extreme that are kind of actually becoming actually just quite anti-training in general. And their approach is much more like living with the dog, which really just didn't speak to me at all. I was talking to my dog's breeder. He's German. Actually, shout out to him, Hans Bodemeyer. I love what he's doing with dogs, but He was telling me about going to like a seminar / workshop with Knut Fuchs in Germany. And Knut Fuchs is like one of the great IGP greats. And he was talking about how cool it was because throughout the whole day when he's explaining stuff, he's just showing you with his dogs, and he has dogs on their platforms, and he just calls them up throughout the day, gets them doing stuff. And I just thought, man, that's so missing, because so often it's just seminars and just PowerPoint presentations, and you never actually get to see a dog being trained or any kind of practical side of things. And I felt like that was really missing as well, especially in the force-free community. I think like we love, I don't know if I would say this is just a force-free thing, but like we love a conference, right? Like we love the PowerPoint presentations, getting really nerdy on
science.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I think you're right there, Glenn. Yeah, supposedly science, but very like biased viewpoint of it. Also, everyone trying to one up each other in terms of like humane hierarchy. And Lima, no, that's not good enough. We need to make a better, like, and it just kind of was getting so ridiculous. Like, that's not free of aversives enough. I was really sad to see what became of the IAABC, to be honest, because early on, they seemed like much more open-minded. I know Michael Shikashio gets a lot of hate online, but actually under his leadership even, they felt like a much more open-minded community. And over recent years, you know, then they were kind of Lima based. And then over recent years, it just seems like it's become extremely force free. I found that really sad because at one point they really seemed to be pioneering the idea of open-minded dog training. I know a lot of people left for that reason as well, because it had just become so extreme. I don't feel like, this is one of the things as well from this change that I've had. I actually don't feel like, and maybe people can point me in a different direction, but I don't feel like there's anyone really talking for me. Like, I don't feel like there's anyone really representing how I feel about dog training. Like, it feels very divisive, like either very heavy on like aversive style dog training or very heavy on extreme force free. And I don't feel like there are many people talking for those of us that are a bit more in the middle.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't get clicks, you know, like that's the problem. It's boring. You know, like we're balanced trainers, but it's not, you have to do it this way trainer, right? Like, and I think anybody who isn't ideologically captured is a balanced trainer. You do the thing that if there's too much weight on this side of the scale, put it on that side. That's balance. It's balance. And so it's just boring. It's boring. Like good dog training is boring. It shouldn't be exciting. I mean, like sport work, good dog training is fun to watch and it's exciting, but like good behavior work is boring as fuck. Like nothing really should happen, you know, like nothing exciting should happen. The dog should play some games. He should make some good decisions, but that's kind of it. And you know, better than I do, mate, like you're in the online space. So you got to make noise to get heard and you've got to have people hate you. Like your supporters liking it doesn't do anything close to the algorithm help you get from someone hating you. That blows you up super fast. So I think so many people have learned who are not real dogmen or people, not real dog people, have learned to just say the inflammatory thing rather than the true thing. And because the truth is often very boring and uneventful.
You said that like a politician. You sound like dogs is politics. It's not about doing the right thing. It's just about doing the popular thing to win the vote.
I just think a lot of us feel very, very kind of homeless. I feel like a lot of us feel kind of unrepresented. And I think that's a bit sad. And I'm not really sure like what the solution to that is, because I appreciate like not many people have a stomach for another organization. And certainly I'm not the kind of person I'm not much of a bureaucrat at all. But I do feel like there's a lot of us that just kind of feel unrepresented. There
does need to be a central organization. I was hoping that the IACP would be the one, but it seems to be something that's lodged in North America, which is sad because it really, I would have loved to have seen that take roots in all around the world and people being able to join that and keep the politics out of it and just keep it about growing understanding, because it's a sound organisation. It's got people with the right spirit in it, and they were trying to get it into Europe, but there just wasn't enough uptake in it. And oh man, I really feel that we're sadly, like you said, Nick, we're sadly underrepresented. There are a lot of people out there who feel this way and they kind of feel defeated and they're kind of thinking, what next? Who's going to step up to the mantle? And I think everybody's waiting for somebody to take that job, you know, like who's going to do it? Who's going to run it? I think the issue is there's a lot of people in the other communities who they don't train many dogs. They spend more time online, and they've got endless amounts of time. They just seem to be sitting at home waiting for the next argument to pop up. There seems to be a lot of them, a lot of really disenfranchised people who are angry and pissed off and seem to lean their support into attacking people like us who are actually out there working and making bank and training dogs and doing all these sort of things, which in turn doesn't give us much time to respond online or get these organizations up and going and do conferences with no dogs there and lots of PowerPoints and trying to one-up each other and cannibalize each other for not being positive enough. It sounds like I'm on the attack here, but the reality is that's what's happening, is that there's more people turning up to these conferences because no one's training dogs. They're talking about training dogs, talking about the idea of training dogs, whereas we're actually training dogs. We're doing that. That's our business. That's our breadline. The call to action point is, yes, I would love to see a universal organization that supports people like us, people in the middle, people that are not really part of the left group or part of the right group. We're more centrist to what's going on, like we borrow from each side as we see fit because we think it needs a little bit more left thinking or it needs a bit more right thinking here, which is a lot of the people I'm listening to in the world right now with all the world economies and issues with governments going on. The people that I really love listening to, the educated people, are centrists. They don't want to lean either way. They don't want to be on the extreme right or the extreme left. They're actually in opposition to them unless they need to borrow some sound logic. And that's what I feel like our audience needs to do, and the people that I like training dogs with do as well. They borrow the most intelligent sides of either party and say, well, that is sound. That does work. And you do see net positives from that side of things. Rather than identifying as these people, we're just getting on with the business of getting results. I'd love to see an organization like that where it's not just a money spinner or a popularity group or a social media buzzword. It's actually something that has teeth. It has integrity, real integrity. And outcome for that is you've got a fighting group that can, instead of putting all the pressure on people like Melanie Uda, where she's just drowning in people attacking her all the time because she's coming forward and speaking logical truths about things, you can have other people who become, what did Stuart Hilliard called it? Supportive science, I think is the word that he used, where you can be more educated and you do have supportive science to be able to back it up. Rather than just saying our training is science-based, you can say, well, no, it's not. You're just using popular quotes. That's not science-based. That's just quote-based. Here is some of the legitimate sciences. Here is some of the pros and cons of what we need to talk about. And people like Stuart and Melanie are great people. I've said it before. I've said it many times. If you've got the capability to go and listen and learn from these type of people, be a student of them because they're only going to tell you the truth. They don't have a bias. They're not trying to protect a nest egg or some fraudulent fabricated bullshit program. They're just telling you the truth. They're just telling you this is the real way. This is what science really says about it. And this is what not only the science says about it, but what the pragmatic outcomes are. So combining those two together gives you the best of both worlds. And that's what I would like to usher in for new students that are coming in, or people like yourself, Nick, is that when people look at it, they're not only talking about the theoretical side of it, which is often the part that gets lost in such heavy translation issues. I would love it that people like yourself and many others go out and actually have a pilgrimage into the world and actually see the pragmatic side of it. And when they do, they can meet people and talk to them without fear of being cut down or a stigma of being shunned from the group or thrown into the wilderness. They can actually go and talk to these people and say, look, like I've never seen anything like that before. How do you do it? What could I do better in my game? And when people do that, like yourself and, referencing Simon Moody, and there's many other people that we've spoken to over periods of time, this is a wonderful outcome for them because it's true enlightenment. It's on the path to true enlightenment. It's when you actually go, oh shit, like Socrates says, I've just learned that I know nothing about nothing. And that's okay. I'm open to being an empty vessel and letting people pour knowledge into me.
Even when I was more on the force retraining side, I was quite uncomfortable with the idea of banning e-collars. There's a few reasons for that. Firstly, even the highest level of force free trainers were kind of admitting that we don't have another solution for dogs with high predation tendencies like killing sheep and stuff. And while we don't have a solution for that, why would we take away the only solution that we do have? Like I didn't get that. And secondly, I thought it was kind of a waste of time or like not the best use of time, because realistically, obviously I know every place in the world is going to be different, but I've been training dogs professionally for about 12 years. And I don't know if I've ever seen a case of someone really abusing a dog with an e-collar. But what I do see a lot of is a lot of other dog welfare issues. And I don't understand why we weren't spending more time on that. Like, for example, locally to us, we have a lot of importing foreign rescue dogs that are literally feral dogs. And then you bring them to the UK, you put them in a flat in the city, and they're just anxious wrecks because, you know, for generations and generations, they've been naturally selected to avoid people. And then you're just shoving them in the city environment because people think that that's a kind of way of doing things. Or just issues with brachycephalic dogs that can't breathe, can't walk down the street without becoming ill. So there was so many other dog welfare issues that seemed so much more pressing to me. I just couldn't understand why it was getting such a huge amount of focus, because it wasn't like that was not the problem that was most pressing to what I was actually seeing.
Totally, mate. I agree with that so much. And there's so many times I've said to people like, really? This is what you're fucking worried about? Meanwhile, there's obese dogs. There's dogs starving to death. There's dogs that have never left their fucking house. And you're worried about this dog that is living his best life in a prong collar? Are you fucking kidding me? You're so misaligned.
The other point to that too, Nick, to use your concern about removing e-collars, is there's people who've come to me before and said, can you teach me snake avoidance training? I said, no, I can't. And I said, because A, I'm not allowed to use e-collars and I don't have snakes. And I said, if I had snakes and e-collars, absolutely, I could work with you with snake avoidance training. I said, if you're ever going to somebody, make sure A, they're educated on the use of e-collars, they know how to use them properly, and B, that they have snakes. Otherwise, avoid them like the plague, because it will be useless shit and it won't do anything to help you and your dog's problem. Much like stock chasing and so forth. I mean, these things are fucking incredible in so many other ways, and, you know, being able to install language and control in dogs, but even things like the stock chasing and the snake avoidance training, like completely useless without it, completely useless.
It just seemed much more like a mission in virtue signaling, because the issues that we were actually seeing, like the foreign importation of dogs in this country is a huge welfare issue. People don't want to talk about it because a lot of our clients own foreign rescue dogs, and some of the big charities import these dogs. So it's very taboo. People don't want to talk about it. But frequently we're seeing these dogs come over that are just anxious wrecks because all of their genetics tell them to avoid people. And these dogs end up on medication just to even cope with life. And it's really, really sad. There's one other completely unrelated point I want to make, but I'm just conscious that I don't know how much time we have, and I just want to kind of spit all this stuff out. Another thing I notice, or I've observed, is I think the people that kind of got the best results doing more positive training were actually kind of control freaks. Like, they were very controlling of the dog, like extremely controlling about making sure that the dog didn't ever get reps of anything that they didn't want the dog to pick up, and was always kind of heading in the right direction. One of the things that I think happens when you add aversive control is you can actually give the dog an enormous amount more freedom, and you don't have to be so controlling of the dog. Now, I don't actually have an issue if someone wants to train the dog in that way and they want to be like, that's their personality type. They're going to be very controlling, very focused on the dog. That's totally fine. It's not an issue with me, but I think it's something that's kind of worth acknowledging, because I see that pattern a lot. The people that were actually training without aversives, but were actually getting really good results, were the kind of personalities where they were very controlling. And I don't think that's for everyone. Like, I don't think most pet owners want to do that, or would like, that is really not something that they would excel at.
Hey, mate, on that, me and Glenn both have a habit through our excitement and enthusiasm and Zoom lag of cutting you off many times today. So finish up for us. Tell us, where are you at? How's training feel? Hit us with anything that we have cut you off and you haven't had a chance to say. Tell us, and then tell people where they can get in touch with you.
I don't know what else to say, to be honest. I feel like this is something I'm still figuring out a lot of, to be honest. And in the grand scheme of how long I've been training dogs and how long I've been using tools, I realized that I'm a relative newbie to tools. I know how to do some things that have been working really, really well for me and helping enabled me to help a lot of people that I wouldn't have been able to help otherwise. And so, as you said, Pat, like that's really exciting for me. But I'm also conscious that I'm quite new to this, so I'm still learning so much different approaches of ways to use aversive control, which is, as you said, quite exciting. But I'm also just conscious of my own like amateurness in just newness to that kind of style of dog training. That's kind of one thing. Yeah, I'm not really sure what to say, Pat. I feel like I'm still exploring so much of this stuff. That's why, like, if we were having a normal podcast, I would be able to just talk so fluently. But I feel like this is just all like new ground for me because it's actually something I haven't been able to talk about for a long time. So it's like, I haven't got the reps in of it, like explaining this stuff.
I appreciate you being here because this is a very brave thing to do. And it's like I said, this is what, if everyone were just truthful about the way that they trained, regardless of how they were brought into things, you know? And I think the labels that we give ourselves, it's such a fucking stupid cliche thing. Oh, I don't want any labels, right? But you have to, because you have to identify how you train. And like, I think that a balanced trainer is hardly a well-defined label, right? It's not like that means like you're in this clique. But I think that the labels that people put onto their clique is destructive. And I think as well, like anytime that your group doesn't want you looking in another direction, right? Don't look at that other group. You should look at that other group really fucking hard. And we see that like a lot. And that's not exclusive to the force-free community. There's plenty of balance training cults that won't allow you to interact with people from the others, right? It's a human problem. It's not one side versus another problem. But I think that doesn't serve you, doesn't serve dogs. Yeah, you might have a community, but if your community is based on control of you, you're not in the community. You're a slave of the leader of the community, right? And so I think that's one of the things, like it's why I love PSA as a game. It's why, like, you know, when I was looking to what sport do I do when I leave the army, that's why I choose that. It baffles me, and I'm aware of the irony of a guy who was in the army for 12 years saying this, but it baffles me when people keep wanting to put other people in charge of them. Right? Like it fucking blows my mind when people keep wanting to outsource authority. They're like, no, somebody else has to tell me what to do. That's why I'm so impressed by you, mate, that you're like, nah, I want to change the way I do things and I won't be held back by the people who are not going to like that I've changed the way I do things. You serve yourself. That's one of the things that so many of us in the world our lives could be so much better if you just focused on when your head hits the pillow at night, you're happy with yourself. Chances are you're going to lead a pretty fucking good life and you're going to have really good friends and people around you if when you go to sleep, you're like, no, I did good today, instead of, yeah, I fucking controlled that motherfucker.
It's interesting you talk about the labels. Like for me, I still don't think about myself as a balance trainer. I just think about myself as a dog trainer. I don't really like the labels, to be honest, because I've experienced what it's like in terms of how it puts you in a box. I think it stops people from feeling like they can explore different ways of training dogs. And I don't like it. I don't like the tribalism. I said this to Alex the other day when I was in the car with him and he said, yeah, but Nick, you're a balance trainer. So I don't think of myself like that at all.
But that's the last thing you got to let go of, mate, because that is the indoctrination of the balance to the bad guys. And now you don't want to identify with one. I know that's how you're tell you how to think.
No, and maybe you're right, Pat, and maybe that's eventually how I'll feel. But right now I feel like I would just be trading one box for another.
Yeah. My definition of a balanced trainer doesn't have a box. For me, there's plenty of dogs I'm full force free because that's what is going to get the job done. There's sometimes I'm the fucking dog daddy because if you come up with the line at me, like I'm putting on my costume, right? But in general, I'm exactly what the dog needs me to be in that moment. And that's what a balanced trainer is, right? Like when you're like, hey, I'm going to work with you towards an outcome and I have my own ethics, but I'm not going to step outside of those, but I'm also not going to be like, oh, how would somebody else feel about what I'm doing here? It's me that I'm worried about. And it's me that has to look me in the mirror and know my actual intent as to why I did things. And that I think is, for me, was very liberating. And it's still something I struggle with every day, but is looking and going, oh, I don't give a fuck what you think about me because I know how I feel about me. And I have all the information that led to that decision being made, where you have just your version of the information. You don't have what I have. And so long as I'm happy in myself. And so that's why I think that we kind of, anybody who trains that way has to be a balanced trainer because you're just going to draw for you. That's your term, mate. You have to fucking, I'm putting it on you and you can't take it off. Right?
Yeah, that's basically what Alex said as well. I don't know.
You're
maybe,
one of us. One of us. One of us.
Look, I said I'm figuring all this stuff out, so we'll see what happens.
There's another good quote that comes to mind, and one of you guys triggered my thoughts on it. I'll probably bastardize it, but it says words to the effect of, a slave is somebody who cannot speak their thoughts. And I think that there's a lot of times that people are in voluntary slavery. They just don't realize that they've put themselves in that position because they've relinquished their ability to ask questions or look deeper into things because now they've got somebody who's dictating terms to them. And that's such an anomaly. But I know I've put myself in those positions before where I've been young, impulsive. I've lacked the fortitude of wisdom or critical thinking, and I've given that power to somebody else, and they've lorded it over me. It's very easy to do. Another point to your thoughts and concerns about doing this for such a long time and then suddenly coming to the conclusion that, you know, it was possibly wrong and you've wasted all that time. There's many people in that camp, mate. And I had the very, very good fortune and privilege to be able to interview Dr. Robert Sapolsky when I was with the ISCP. And I asked him a similar questions, word to the effect of, you know, like if you could do anything different in your career, what would it have been? I believe he said I would have spent far less time studying the hippocampus and far more time on the prefrontal cortex. I spent far too long obsessing over one portion of the brain where it didn't really lead me to where I want to go, whereas I should have spent more time on this region. But look at him, you know, like he's still a world-revered person. And just because he did spend that time, it didn't mean that it was in vain. He learned everything he needed to know, but realized he needed to switch tracks and put himself in a position where he's one of the world's leading authorities in neurobiology. So we can spend time and you can look back on it regrettably and say, oh, I wish I didn't do it that way. But the history is history. And I think that you just learn from it and move on and go, okay, cool. And you're only a young bloke. How old are you?
I'm 31.
You're only a young lad. You've got years ahead of you to correct this, you know,
Just a baby.
Yeah, you're just a babe. So, you know, you've got years ahead of you.
Patronizing thing you could say to anyone, isn't it?
Well,
I feel like Glenn is a very kind of dad-like figure, though. You always give those dad vibes, Glenn. So I get it.
Well, I'm 55, mate.
Glenn's Papa Doggy to so many people.
I think you're right, though, Pat. I think so many people, they see it like a dichotomy. And I think a lot of people that would have known me as a positive trainer will listen to this and think of it like, oh, Nick's an e-collar trainer now. As if like we train every single dog with e-collars. Yeah. And actually, there's a lot of things that haven't changed. And the amount of dogs that you would use an e-collar on are like the minority. But I think people oftentimes see things like that. You're like, it's all or nothing.
Yeah.
Well, they're just focusing on the treachery of you leaving their fold. And don't focus on that, mate. Just be a beacon of knowledge and wisdom. And it's very easy to get drawn into the suck hole of despair over some of these things. I've been in it. There's times where Pat and I have, or I have, or he has, where we've cycled up on fury. Pat's better than I am at getting out of it. Like he can switch tracks far more easy. But it does leave you perplexed and it does leave you lacking any capability to understand how and why when you're just looking at it critically and you're thinking, how? I just don't understand how you can't see this. But I'll relate it to a point that you made very early on quickly. Recently, you know, like I've been on a weight loss bender because I was blowing out. I was getting stressed. We're moving house. Me and stress aren't good friends because when I get stressed, I eat food and I stack weight on. So I got up to something like nearly 112 kilos. I was just ballooning out of control. You know, all my nice clothes were literally couldn't wear them anymore. It was just ridiculous. And then I was talking to a couple of friends, Kirsty and Kerr, at a seminar. They were telling me about how they tried this carnivore diet. And I thought, I'll give it a go. Long story short, I'm now down to, for the first time ever, the scales dipped below 100 kilos. So I was in the 99 territory. It doesn't matter what other people say to you, their words of encouragement. Like my wife would always encourage me. She's very health conscious, she's all about supplementing and physical health and everything like that. She maintains a good physical appearance at all times. She eats healthy, she eats well. And she would always try and gently encourage me, but I wouldn't listen to her. People would try and ridicule me and mock me, call me a fat and blah, blah, blah. And you need to lose weight, fatty, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, they're your friends and they're just saying it in sort of like a loving sort of jibe, even though it doesn't sound loving. But they would try and encourage, anybody would come at it from an angle. But until you're ready, and it's something that you've got to come to terms with, because it didn't matter what anybody said to me. It didn't matter whether my fit friends around me were like trying to make me see the light of day. It didn't matter. The only thing that made a difference is, it was good that I knew the knowledge. That's good because I've been up and down in weight all my life. I knew the knowledge. I knew it was there. I knew it was available to me. And then when I was ready to pull the trigger, which I did, I don't know, something just changed. Something got in my head and I thought, yeah, it's time. It's time I grabbed back hold of control and did something about this. And then I thought, oh, this is easy. I know how to do this. And all my wife's great advice on supplementation. Great. I'm feeling good. I'm not feeling like I'm lacking. I was getting good data. I was getting good information on the diet plan that I was following. And I never felt like I was missing out. All of a sudden, I'm thinking, yeah, I'm in control of this. Like I can do this. And the same thing happens when people transition over like you're done. You will feel, and people do feel sketchy about it at the start. They struggle with it and think, oh, shit, where's my safety net? I've got to go back. That did happen to me at the very start. The very start of it, I thought, holy shit, I'm panicking. I'm feeling the sugar withdrawals. I'm getting that fever. I'm feeling that something's missing out and I wanted to go back. I wanted to grab it and I thought, nah, I've got to stay on this now and just do it ever so gently. So I started to reduce it over, and then all of a sudden I'm in control. I'm back in control of running my life. It was sugar that was being my master. It was controlling me. Now it doesn't have a control over me anymore. I don't make the same stupid health choices anymore. But the same could be said, metaphorically about your dog training career is just don't give those people power over you. And I agree entirely with what Pat's saying. If they're saying, don't look at this, don't look at that, what's their reasoning? Like they've got to provide you with good reasoning for doing that. I do know people that I consider very good dog trainers that are fucking terrible people. Like in their heart and soul, they're actually horrible, terrible people. But it doesn't take away the fact that I acknowledge that they're good dog trainers. If I look at their work, I can't criticize their work. Them themselves, I could say they're horrible people to be around, just the worst. But I would never be so condescending to say, and they're shit dog trainers, because that part is not true. For a lot of people, I think what you have to do is say, these people might be unsavory to me. I might not like them, but I can't deny that what I'm seeing is good work. And dogs are benefiting from it. I'm seeing happy dogs. I'm seeing dogs that have got great outcomes. I'm seeing dogs that aren't just being wasted and thrown into euthanasia camps because of my fragile ego. And I think these are something that people need to embrace a little bit more.
I think for me, Glenn, I saw something that I couldn't unsee, and I know that it can benefit a huge amount of people. And when you have clients in front of you that are in emotional distress, and to deny those people the help that that you can give them is not something I could do. And I really didn't want to live a lie or feel like I had to hide my true thoughts about things. I know that there are other people that choose to do that, and I hope that that they'll make the same decision I did. I just couldn't do that. I'm really passionate about dog training and becoming the best dog trainer I can be. So it really kind of would misalign with my whole reason for being into dog training to just go along and pretend something was true that I didn't really think. I think it would have really sucked my joy out of dog training.
It would be a good thing at some stage, Nick, to get you back on after you've had a little bit of time to think further.
I can explain things more eloquently in 6 months or a year when I've done this a few times.
It's not that you haven't explained it eloquently. Like you've spoken your truths, and I think that's all that matters. And sometimes I think that's part of the best conversations is not having somebody that's pre-prepared that comes on the show. But I like speaking to people who are talking truths, who are sharing vulnerabilities. I don't like prefabricated shows. I don't like talking to people who are always prepared unless I'm trying to learn specific knowledge from them. Like if I'm just trying to find out about who they are, often they talk about what they do, not like who they are. And that's not the question I'm trying to dig deep into. I know what people do sometimes. I can see it for myself. I'm trying to find out, who are you? And it's a difficult question because sometimes people don't know. They go, oh, fuck. That's an anomalous sort of question because I don't really know at this stage of time. I haven't had enough time to sit with this and think clearly about it. So even like if some people have enjoyed the show, this episode, and have some questions for you to get you back on sometime and talk to you about it. So the audience can ask you some genuine questions about your journeys and your thoughts and feelings and where we're going with all this.
Yeah, definitely. I would love that. I'm a big fan of the show. So of course, any opportunity to talk to you guys is really, really cool. Yeah, no, I really appreciate that.
Terrific.
Hey, Nick, before I do the wrap, can I just, I've developed sort of a picture in my head. So hear me with accurate or not. You, long time dog trainer, very, very good, very successful using 4-3 methods, much success with clients, hit the odd dog that didn't work, but we've all done that. Got your own dog to do sport. Through doing sport, couldn't achieve what you wanted to achieve using just 4-3 methods. Opened your mind to the idea of aversive control. Did that yourself on your own dogs for sport. And then realized, oh, wait, hang on. Like my dog didn't die. Everything's good. Everything's fine. I've seen results. Started doing that to pets. Has that been the journey? Have I understood it correctly or what did I get?
No, not quite. It wasn't for me when I first started using e-collars. It was nothing to do with sport. Even though, of course, through sport, I was exposed to other people using tools and stuff like that. It wasn't like the first times I started using it was nothing to do with sport.
Okay.
It was,
but the exposure to it, like probably softened it for you? Like you were watching people, like had you trained with people using e-collars prior?
Not until I started getting into sport. Yeah. So when I started getting into sport, then I was around people that were using the tools.
Like what I'm getting at is, can I put you in the category of people who have been converted because of sport? Like they've done a dog sport.
Man, I think sport had a massive role to play. Massive role. I actually encourage anyone to do dog sports. And I think there's a resistance to that from a lot of people. Like a lot of people feel like, oh, behavior and dog sports are nothing like. It's like, you don't know what you're missing.
Yeah.
Actually, that's one of the things I would have changed. I would have got into sport much, much earlier. Even like regardless of tools or anything like that, it just forces you to train on a much higher level. And I really actually strongly disagree with the idea that behavior mod and training are somehow completely separate. It's like they are so interlinked. It's unbelievable. and it's so important to be good at dog training. I'm a little bit susceptible to a rant on this subject because I get really annoyed with the kind of person that goes to see a client and they never actually do any training with the dog. I see a lot of dogs that come to me for like reactivity, and I'm like, oh, okay, have you worked around dogs then? No. And they've like worked with like 2 or 3 trainers before, and I'm like, well, what have you been doing? what have you been doing? And like there's this thing that seems prevalent at the moment of like doing a consultation with someone, like just kind of jargoning them with like operant conditioning and then sending them a PDF afterwards. Like somehow that's a useful service. And I just don't understand that at all. Like for me, when I meet someone for one-to-one training, even like regardless, even when I was doing this, even when I was completely force-free, I was always heavily into the practical training, like running setups and stuff like that very quickly. It feels borderline scammy, and I don't think people are going out to scam people, but I do think it's a complete mismatch.
Oh, I disagree. I disagree with that. I think people are deliberately going out there to scam people. I am certain of it.
I think it's a complete mismatch of what the client wants and what the professional is actually delivering. And unfortunately, until the client has had that experience, like they don't know what they're going in for. Come the end, they've spent all of this money for a PDF that just explains to them a load of theory, but doesn't actually give them any kind of practical knowledge. Another thing, I listened to one of Ivan's podcasts where he had a veterinary behaviorist on, and Ivan asked him the question and said, so who are the trainers that you would really recommend? And he struggled with that question so hard. He wanted to recommend Victoria Stilwell, but he couldn't remember her name. And he was like, Victoria, what's her name? Victoria. And then he wanted to recommend Kiko Pup, couldn't remember her name. To me, that is insanely disrespectful of the dog training industry. If you've dedicated your life to this and you can't name another dog trainer, what are you doing? Like, what? This is like if I was really into F1 or something and I couldn't name an F1 driver. It's like, this doesn't make sense.
But as well, I think for an industry professional to recommend Victoria Stilwell as anything other than hilarious, like you expose yourself immediately in that moment. Like that to me, like that's a lay person who watches TV who goes like, oh, I've seen her on TV. The people who choose the people for TV know what they're talking about. Here she is. You know as well as I do, Matt, the moment someone who represents themselves as a dog person says that Victoria Stilwell has anything even approaching a level of competence that she could enter someone's home and give dog training advice, you know immediately where to put all the rest of the shit that they say.
Mate,
like immediately you can go, oh, I'll throw you out. Like nothing you say from here on out has any relevance.
I'm a big UFC fan. It's like if I talk to someone at a party and they say their favorite UFC fighter is Conor McGregor. Like, yeah. Okay. Yeah. So you're a real casual.
yeah. Exactly. That's exactly it. You then immediately go, oh, right, cool. I see where this conversation is going. And if you're a veterinary behavioralist, then you're recommending Victoria Stewart. Like nothing you say about dogs is relevant. Like if you've observed her training a dog and you think that's quality dog training, like you are equally as incompetent as her, and therefore nothing you say is relevant to anything.
It's also, I love dog training. You know, like this is my whole life. This is my passion. I think it's disrespectful to the craft of dog training to not be able to name another dog trainer and to do that as a career. I actually find that disrespectful.
Yeah. That's a great way to put it. That's very well put. Well, man, I feel like we should wrap it up. We've been going for 2 hours or more.
Well, let me get Nick, my plug in.
Yeah. This is your part.
Look, I've done this podcast thing before. Okay.
Yeah.
I guess there's two things for me. Firstly, I'm not super active. I'm not as consistent as you guys, but I do have a podcast, the Dog Talk with Nick Benger podcast. Been doing it for a long time, even if I'm not super consistent. And then the other thing is when you guys are checking out Pat's community on School, I also have a community. And when I see other dog trainers getting on School, I'm actually really excited because School is such a collaborative platform. And it's not like you have to choose, like you're in Pat's club or you're in this club or whatever. It's like you can be in as many groups as you want. I'm in so many different groups, dog training groups and all kinds of groups. So when you go on Pat's group, also check out my group. It's just the dog training community School group.
Yeah,
so.
No, you're the one that got me into it. And I have to thank you for that because I've been aware of School for a while, but never gave it a good look at. And it has turned out to be the answer to the problem that I've had for many years. I'm loving it. I'm loving using it. It's a fantastic platform.
I'm paying to be in Pat's group as well. And I would recommend Pat's group as well to anyone. For me, for the longest time when I was listening to your podcast and you had all the courses and, you know, I love you, Pat, but there's a lot of money, right? You've made it so much more accessible for so many people. And what the thing about School is people don't understand this until it's really hard to sell for me, it's a bit like lead pressure training. Like lead pressure training is really hard to sell people on until they've done it. And then they're like, oh my God, this is incredible. And it's the same thing with School. People don't, if like the community aspect of School is unrivaled but you can't lead with that because people they're not looking for that until they've got it. Yeah. And then they're like, oh man, this is like awesome. And that's one of the coolest things about your group on School and just School in general. But you have all of the cool classroom content, which is a big enough bait for people as well. So
yeah, mate, I like the platform so much. I'm migrating my whole course to it. So I was planning on using School just for like parts of the course, and then selling people into my website. I'm moving everything from my website to School. It's such a user friendly. My experience of it as a learner from other groups that I'm in is great. So I'm like, I have to figure out how to provide this. So I'm really happy with it. Thank you for that. All right. Anything else? Anybody? I'll do the wrap.
I just appreciate the therapy session. This is literally this is really the first time I've actually had an opportunity to talk about this in depth. So it's kind of weird to do that on like the biggest dog training podcast. Is kind of strange, but I just appreciate the opportunity to talk about it. I really do.
You're welcome.
Good for you, man. Now I'm saying you're proud of someone's a weird thing to say, but like good for you. It's been fun to watch your journey. I appreciate you've said all the right words. Like when you said to me, you've scrolled up on our own conversations and like, oh God, why was I saying those things? I was like, yeah, to me, again, I don't want to blow too much smoke up your ass, but you're a dude who's really understood dog training. And that's why for me, I was always like, how does this fucking guy not get this?
I'm so embarrassed by the conversations that we used to have. And also just listening back to the podcast, like I do feel very embarrassed by some of the stuff that I used to thinking I wish I would have kind of figured this out a lot earlier, but it is what it is.
I think you kind of left a candle in the window for Nick quite some time ago, though, Pat. I feel that you and I have had conversations where you believe that he would come to terms with it.
I knew this day was coming. I always knew this was coming. From the very first time I spoke to you, I knew this was coming. I didn't know it would take 9 fucking years because I put a lot of work into this. I didn't realize it was going to take that long, but I knew this day was coming.
That's actually really
you've
interesting.
Got the right ingredients, mate. Yeah, you've got the right ingredients. You're intelligent and you actually give a fuck about the dog side of it. Like you have a look. Like you might not be like, yeah, we had some conversations about things that you might feel differently now, but your ethos has never changed. You're a real dogman. You actually give a fuck about the dog side of it and you lead with curiosity. So like I knew this day was coming. I didn't realize it would take 9 fucking years, but I knew it was coming eventually. And when I saw you got a real dog, I remember saying to someone, it might have been you, Glenn. I remember when you got it's a Mallee, right? Your black dog, or is it a shepherd?
Yeah, that's why I said you were telling me that he's going to come over.
I remember saying, he's on the clock. This motherfucker's about to start using tools. And then I was like, how's it going to go? You know, like, is he going to go like the rest of them and just secretly do that? Or is he going to come out? And here we fucking are. So like
someone else, another friend said it as well. They actually said it to me as well. So they actually said exactly the same thing to me. That's really interesting that though. That's interesting to hear you'd had that fall. That's kind of interesting to me. I think part of the trouble is some of those conversations, I think, and I don't blame you, Pat. I think I must have really put you off talking to me at points. So I don't blame you. To be honest with you, the amount of time we spent talking, I don't think I could have done what you did back then, just consistently hitting your head against the wall. I think I would have given up a hell of a lot earlier, but you did keep going for a long time. But I don't know. I just needed to kind of go on my own journey, I guess. And I think you're right. I think getting into the working dog stuff was a big eye opener for me, for sure.
Yeah. But the reason I persisted is because, like I said, I know that you were following your heart. Like you're a dogman and you thought that this was the best way to go. And I knew that you'll eventually change your mind on that because it's not. And as you've kind of figured out, but you would that's why I'm so happy to have this conversation because I knew you were never going to be a person that would be like, oh no, I'll fucking secretly do that shit. And like, cause I have to stay in good with Victoria Stilwell. Like, fuck her, who cares? Right? And that's the thing, like being kicked out of the community, to quote Rick and Morty, your fucking booze mean nothing to me. I've seen what you cheer for. Like I fucking could not. Oh no, I've been kicked out of a group of fucking crazy ideologues that dye their hair blue. Oh dear. What a fucking terrible group to be kicked out of. Oh, it's the end of my life. Fuck. All right, I'm going to wrap it up before I get myself in trouble.
Before you do, quickly, Nick, I just want to give a shout out to some of your fellow countrymen that I did on the last episode anyway, is that there's some real kick-ass people in the dog sports world over in the UK, probably more than I considered. I've been looking, especially in my PSA journey, over to the USA, who has amazing talent over there, but I never really considered how incredible some of the talent is in the UK with PSA. Like there's some people over there who are absolutely killing it. And I met two of those guys over in Thailand, Asa Wright and Tom Britzman. Again, really good dudes, really talented trainers. There's some amazing people over there. So there's a very, very good collaboration of working dog people over there in the UK who are actually killing it. Some of the dogs they're producing as well are the real deal. Just an example of that, there's a dog over there called Bomber who's now retired, but he's produced a dog they've got in Thailand called Bullet, and he's a herder cross, but what a fantastic dog. You know, a livable pet dog who goes and sleeps on the bed. He's friendly. He's kind to people. He's super responsive, even around decoys running around, and yet the dog is an absolute mauler. Beautiful obedience, an absolute bomber himself with beating up on the decoys, but a beautifully controlled dog. And, you know, that's the sort of thing people over in the UK are producing. They produce it here in Australia as well, and they produce it in the USA. But as I said, I've just never looked as tightly as before, and I've done a lot more research since then. So kudos to the guys over in the UK for producing that sort of work. It was just lovely to watch, and also to personally, face-to-face, which I feel is very important, to meet some of these people who have seen their work online but never really looked a lot deeper into it. And now I'm seeing, you know, my eyes are a little bit more wide open. So congrats.
All right. That's it. Another episode, Canine Paradigm. As always, if you like what you hear, like, rate, share, subscribe. Do that through whatever subscription service you download us from, and then go to another one and do that there. They don't check. You're allowed to. Nobody checks. If you want to support the show, best way to do that is via Patreon. A few bucks a month gets you a giant backlog of information as well as some new stuff going forward. Or you can pay more or less. At the end of the day, if you want to buy me a Lamborghini and or you got a tractor, so you don't.
I've got a tractor.
You're good.
Yeah.
I just need a Lamborghini. Yeah.
Well,
that's all. It's not like we're asking for much.
I'll take the Bentley. I'm back on the Bentley wagon now. Now they've got the tractor. Yeah, I'll go the Bentley.
So you could do that, or you could buy a T-shirt. T-shirt would help. We get $4 per shirt, I think.
Patreon and the T-shirts are our only revenue stream. That's it. That's all we've
given up the advertising.
That's all we get.
Recording ads was too hard.
Yep.
Links are in the show notes. If you want to get in touch with us, the best way to do that is to jump in the Facebook discussion groups. Lots of cool conversations going on in there. Or you can shoot us an email. We are info@thecanineparadigm.com. Love you all. Goodbye. Nick, you get to yell through the outro.
I don't know what to say.